Good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. My name is Mark Zawacki, CEO North America for CIONET, and welcome to another edition of Spotlight, where each week we put a digital leader somewhere in the world in the spotlight. Today I'm delighted to welcome Gurinder Kaur, who has had a long, illustrious career across 3 continents in digital, which we'll unpack here shortly. But she's just most recently landed as CIO supply chain at AstraZeneca. We first set this call up and she was still running Coca-Cola's CIO for Coca-Cola in North America. So Gurinder, thank you for joining us and also making the switch where we had originally a couple months ago thought this would be a Coca-Cola conversation, and now we're going to have an AstraZeneca conversation. So welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Good day, everybody. Hope everybody is keeping well.
Yeah, and let's, I was looking at your background, Gurinder, after we spoke last week, and you actually trained in technology in Australia. Of all places, you were down in Melbourne. I found that fascinating. You can elaborate on this, but I know you went into automotive, you're at Ford Motor Group, and then you kind of went into CPG, you're at Kellogg, and then Diageo. Coca-Cola, and now you're in pharma. Maybe you could unpack that a little bit more for us and tell us about your career.
Yeah, so at heart, I'm a continuous learner. I learn every day, and that really excites me. So yes, if you really unpack my career, I have about 13 years in FMCG, about 8 years in automotive, and then a couple of years in consulting and logistics and oil and gas. So yeah, and I've got a privilege now. I call it always a privilege to have worked all around the world, to learn all these different industries and really be very curious about how industry work and how businesses work. And I'm actually, I always say I'm a business leader first, a technology leader second. So I'm looking forward now. I'm joining the pharmaceutical industry at actually a very pivotal time, as we all know, and we are watching COVID. Pharma has got a big role to play to really drive and make the communities better and healthier. So I'm eager to basically now be in a totally new industry, learn the pharmaceutical industry. And I can tell you so far, if I want to compare between automotive, oil and gas, FMCG and pharma, it is definitely a complicated and regulated industry. So I'm looking forward to learning about it.
Let's start there. You know, this is a short 30-minute discussion, as our regular listeners know. One of our previous interviewees said that when you change industries as a digital leader, as a CIO, 80% is the same and only 20% is different. Now that you're right now in the midst of that, from Coca-Cola to AstraZeneca, do you think that's largely right? Do you think 80% of it is still the same and you're learning 20% new, or is it less or more?
The fundamentals are still the same. For a technology leader, what I look at as I get into industry is a couple of building blocks. Number one is, if you look at the technology footprint with digital, you need to create speed and scale. In order for you to create speed and scale, regardless of which industry you're in, you need to go back to your basics. So my basics are very simple. How do we simplify our landscape? How do we ensure we don't have, as I came out for a meeting just before this, how do I make sure I don't have 4,000 applications within my manufacturing business processes? Why is there need to be all this fragmentation? So how do we simplify? And simplification is a big word. And I think every CIO out there has got some level of simplification going on, regardless of which industry you're in. Second is data. And I say data fuels everything. Data integrates all business processes regarding of industry. So really trying to put a very robust foundation on your data quality, your data governance, your master data, because if you think about it, all automation, all artificial intelligence, machine learning, analytics, regardless of any buzzwords anybody wants to use, if you don't have a strong foundation of data in terms of governance and quality, those things are what I call candy and somebody's pet project. You can never scale that until you get your data right. So you need to simplify your platform. You need to get your data quality and your data foundation right. And then the third thing, which is actually should have been the first thing I mentioned, is you need to have the right talent. You need to have the right talent within your technology organization in order to take up these opportunities and work with the business to really digitize all the major business processes. So to me, the fundamental is your 80%. Whether it's auto, FMCG, or pharma, you need to get there. Of course, in pharma, I got an added burden now. I call it a burden with regulations and compliance, because we are very, very heavily regulated industry, which we need to take that into consideration when I compare myself in FMCG or in the automotive industry. So those are some of the basics, I think, when we talk about the 80%. And then, the difference on the 20% is you need to learn the industry. Pharmaceuticals, very quickly, I'm understanding manufacturing and R&D are king. I came from FMCG where marketing was king. So here the commercial organization is important, but not as important as R&D and manufacturing and supply chain. So those are the types of nuances one needs to come in and understand, because that's how you prioritize, that's how you make sure where your resources goes. And those are some of the things I'm learning pretty quickly as I'm in the pharma industry. Now, I think week 4 of the pharma industry as I'm speaking.
And we did our pre-call last week in preparation for today, and I was very intrigued with this idea. I knew, as you know, the old AstraZeneca, a long time ago, they were a client of mine 20 plus years ago, but I didn't realize AstraZeneca, we just say pharma and we think of, medicines or something, but it's an oncology company, and its mission is out there to find cures for cancer. Yes. And yet in the middle of the pandemic, it decided to do vaccines. But that's not something it normally did, but it wanted to, do good, right? Could you just elaborate on that a little bit? I know you're new to AstraZeneca, but it made this decision to go into vaccines to help a great cause, obviously.
I will give a different spin on it as I'm learning about the company, and this is me, my understanding of it, and this is one of the reasons I joined this great company. I mean, I was very happy in Coca-Cola. It was a great company, but during the last 12 months, I'm sure all of us on the call, I'm sure all our motivations have changed a bit. I know mine have, in terms of what is important to me, what really gets me excited coming to work compared to pre-COVID as of now. And the one reason I did mention to you when we were doing our pre-work was the reason AstraZeneca was so attractive to me, other than opening up a whole new industry for me to learn in. Again, I'm a perpetual student. I like to learn new things. Is the whole nuance of really trying to get into something new, which is vaccines, because we are not a vaccine company. I think J&J, if you look at Johnson & Johnson, those are all the big vaccine companies. Taking something new, creating something within, I would say, 9 months. Start from plan from April and getting it out into the market in December. And what really excited me was, because I came from Asia, and there's a lot of poor countries in Asia and Africa. And we are basically in partnership with this COVAX association to get this vaccine to countries that can't afford it, countries that can't pay those high prices. I think that was the clincher for me for this role, to be able to come and learn a new industry and to work for such a company that actually went outside of what their normal offering is, to really try to do some good for the community out there. So to me, that's the nuances. And as you come into AstraZeneca, that's the culture. We are here to do better things for our patients. But this is broader than our patients, because we are an oncology company. This is broader to the community. How can we help with COVID? How can we bring medicines to areas that can't afford it? And how can we bring it into areas, even from a packaging perspective, to far-fetched areas in where we package the product so it can go anywhere and everywhere. So that was sort of my clincher for the role, and I'm very excited to be here.
That's great. And one other thing you said in your introduction, I just want to pick up on, is you're a business person first, and yes, that has been a theme with a lot of the previous interviews we've done in the Spotlight series. What's your take on that? I know a lot of CIOs, want to be business leaders. still have come through the technology tracks. We're hoping that more and more CIOs and digital leaders go into the business, get promoted into running a line of business or being, GM of a division of a large multinational. What are still the challenges in doing that? Does the board readily accept CIOs as business leaders? Do they still think they're turning the crank on technology? What have you personally used and you've had a very successful career, what have you personally used as tools to kind of overcome that, that IT business alignment?
So I think at the end of the day, if you asked that question 5 years ago, I would say it was a difficult path because there was always this idea that IT was back office or IT keeps the lights on and really didn't drive any business transformation. I believe in the last 2 years, the trajectory has changed. Everything, especially after COVID. I mean, every conversation after COVID, whether you're talking about transforming your sourcing processes or your procurement or your manufacturing, supply chain, marketing, IT is in the center of all of that because technology and analytics and data is enabling all those capabilities for the business. So for the last 2 years and an accelerated path, especially in the last 12 months, I think IT leaders are now considered really at the table, driving the strategies, and even in board meetings, driving a lot of the discussions on how do we actually transform the business? How do we actually move and open up new markets? How do we actually provide different services for our consumer customers? And in my instance, in AstraZeneca, the patients. So IT is right in the middle of it. I would say that the burden is more on the individual technology leaders. I think we need to take the chip off our shoulder. We need to feel we are an equal partner at the table. We need to get educated about our industry. I'm a big believer of, and I'm putting that stress on me at the moment, 30 days in. I'm a big believer technology leaders need to know the industry in and out and need to know the business processes even better than the business knows their business processes. Only then can you start to marry in technology solutions and bring the power of that to the discussion, whether at the board level or even at any strategy level at the C-suite. So to me, I think the onus is up to us. We need to put in the time, we need to put in the effort. I think we're all brilliant individuals out there. We have really strong technology backgrounds. So how do we actually pivot and really become a business leader that knows our business in and out so we can bring the right solutions to the table?
Wonderful. Let's switch gears a little bit. The format for these sessions is we kind of look back a year. Obviously, 2020 was a very pivotal year. And then we kind of look forward. Now, looking back a year, you're at a previous employer. So without drilling down too much on Coca-Cola, maybe let's take more of a macro level view of just looking back a year. And of course, you've spent time in consulting. But if you look back to 2020, overall, and you can make it a sector comment or a geographical one. But when you look back at 2020, what do you think CIOs and your CIO colleagues and other businesses, but what do you think they got right? And what do you think they had in place overall to manage the way through the year? And then the flip side of that coin is, where do you think, when you kind of do a post-mortem on other IT leaders, globally, where might they have perhaps done a little better or raised their game a bit? So, kind of the strengths and weaknesses as you saw, this herd of digital leaders and CIOs go through 2020. What do you think they got right? And then what do you think were some of their challenges when you look back on the year?
So yeah, so I can talk about the last 12 months. I mean, it was a very different, if I look back to January 2020, the whole strategy and the game plan coming in for that year was completely turned over its head in March, coming into in my role in Coca-Cola at that stage as a CIO for North America. But I think it's been a very challenging and also very, I would say, exhilarating year for IT professionals all over. If you really look from a summary perspective, we had to pivot very quickly to really ensure that our corporations can work differently. And we need to pivot our selling and commercial capabilities to make sure we can reach our consumers where they want to be reached. And then obviously on our whole manufacturing area, we need to pivot to ensure, because there was a lot of restrictions on manufacturing and materials and what things could be moved. So we had to do a lot of maneuvering across the board. But for my last 12 months, I think that I was very lucky to be at Coca-Cola at that time, because there was some fundamental things already in place that actually helped me to accelerate a lot of that pivoting and ability to react very quickly to the North America Coca-Cola business unit. The first and foremost is I always come back to the people. I had a great team. And what I mean by great team, I think it's all about the mindset. I had an individual, my leadership team, my team were able to pivot very quickly. They were able to work in a very ambiguous environment. They were able to deprioritize and prioritize quickly. So I would say the people I had and my leadership team was my number one asset in really helping all of us at Coca-Cola to deliver towards the North America business unit. The second thing that was Coca-Cola did an amazing thing. And when I joined that company back in 2019, the amazing thing was they were one of the first companies to go to cloud way back before COVID. I think it's 2017, they went to cloud. And when I say cloud, I mean even SAP and everything, all the back-end transactional systems are all in the cloud. And I would say the cloud was a big savior for all of us, because we were very quickly able to basically enable everything, correct? Right from how we market to how we sell to how we close our financial books every month and in the quarter, all remotely, because the ability to work anywhere and everywhere was very, very pivotal in the company because of the strong cloud strategy that the leadership of the company has put in place. So that was the number two sort of the asset, I would say. The number three is the collaboration platforms. When you think about Zoom, Teams, whatever, all the collaboration platforms, that was already all in place. People were already, people were very confident with it. They are very used to using collaboration platforms. All we had to do is put steroids on it and start pushing it remotely to 40,000, 50,000 people globally, and in North America to 8,000 to 10,000 people. So it was very quick. It wasn't any setup work needs to be done, because the environment was already there, the training is already there, and the usage or the business change was already there. So it's just a matter of flipping the steroids on that. Then there was 2 or 3 what I call business platforms, because again, Coca-Cola and CPG companies, we were big with selling in stores. People like you and me were not going to the stores to buy our services and our goods anymore. So we need to pivot very quickly to e-commerce, selling online and selling even e-commerce to the customers like Tesco and Walmart and Target and so on and so forth. So we already had a robust e-commerce platform and an e-commerce agenda underplay in the company, and we were able to really drive that very quickly out. And we also had a very robust analytics platform that is able to help the leaders in the organization to start to pivot and make different decisions. So what I call business platforms, which to me, the 2 important ones at that stage was the e-commerce and the analytics. And then finally, we had a great CISO in Coca-Cola. Our cybersecurity footprint was really strong. And you just imagine now you're opening your doors to everything. People are working from home, they're accessing data from anywhere. Things are all starting to open up. And we had a good cybersecurity footprint to help us to manage through all that. So to me, the people is the main thing. Cloud strategy really helped us. And then the collaboration platforms were really strong. And then we have a couple of business platforms already in place. And then we had our cybersecurity. So those are some of the, I would say, assets or anchor that really helped me to manage the North America business unit.
Great. Let's touch on people and talent. It came up a couple times already, and you have this catchphrase, and you call it empathetic leadership. And so here's explain how you think about empathetic leadership, and explain how that showed up in the last year at Coca-Cola, but just kind of explain your philosophy, because I think it's really interesting and enlightening for our listeners today.
For those who know me, will really chuckle when they hear Gurinder talking about empathetic leadership, because it's still a learning and development area for me. But that was also, I would say, my savior in the last 12 months. So coming into COVID, I can describe myself as a very hard-nosed, business-driven leader. I drive results and I will drive it through. And that the formula really didn't work when the COVID started, because you just imagine people are stressed. There was so much uncertainty. There was basically changing directions every couple of weeks in different ways and things that we needed to get done. And very quickly, I understand that instead of business results have to be delivered. Don't get me wrong. But if we focus on the people and understand where they're coming from and create an environment for them to bring their best self to work remotely every day, that is going to take us a further way. So I really worked hard on myself in terms of how do I create that environment for my team and my leadership. How do I actually enable them to really bring their best self by being empathetic? Because you have homeschooling going on, you have people crammed in their homes, trying to do work, trying to take care of their kids, trying to do school. How do we create that environment that says, we hear you, we know this is all happening, we understand, and we basically enable you to be successful in the way that you can, depending on balancing your work life and your home life in that COVID situation. So that really helped me and helped my team to figure out how do we actually keep up with the pace. So I'm telling myself now, the COVID is still here and this is a new norm, and empathetic leadership I need to really accelerate that now in my current role, helping with AstraZeneca to make sure that we deliver on our business goals.
Gurinder, let's just spend a few more minutes on it. It's a great phrase. I think we understand the phrase. As a digital leader, how does that practically show up on a day-to-day basis? Are you just is there a framework or a lens or a philosophy around it? Are you just trying to check in with people personally and talk about their personal lives before you start talking about the task at hand? Or what are some of the tools and techniques just to add some practicality to those comments?
I think the first thing is getting to know your teams. I mean, every one of us are different. And I have teams that have children. I have teams that are looking after their elderly. I have teams that are actually living on their own. They don't even have anybody in the homes. They're pretty much single people. Getting to know them and spending some time is what I would say is important. And I spend some time on that. And then creating the environment and the flexibility for them to be able to really take care of business and take care of home. By knowing them, you actually create that room and flexibility for them to flex where they can and really take care of their home life when they need to. And then the other thing too, I was noticing the days were getting longer. We were starting meetings at 7 and suddenly we are starting meetings at 6:30 in the morning, and we're still going on to 7 in the evening, and we have no lunch. I mean, in a normal pre-COVID time, you have standard time. You come to work, you leave. Of course, you work sometimes over. You do have your lunches, you do connect with people, but all that seemed to have gone away in this COVID where you're just meeting fatigue. So, and then also what I did was actually cram, and I had a North America role that time, so I was actually could do it because we are time boxed in the time zone, where I actually made sure no meetings before X hours in the morning, and I put it to my 100 plus employees. I send it from my calendar, no meetings. Lunchtime, I put a break. And then after 5:30 in the evening, no meetings. So that really gave, people wanted the permission. I think people want to say that I can do that. So the leadership has to show up to really show it in action and practice it so that people feel confident that, they can follow and they can manage work and life together in these uncertain times. So those are some of the sort of tips and tricks I used to really manage through that environment.
Really interesting. So let's look forward. You've changed careers right in the middle of the pandemic, changed industries. You're learning all now about pharma, very different with that R&D focus versus marketing focus. And, we certainly understand that. What's your priorities beyond yourself and learning the industry, but what are really your business and technology challenges that you've now prioritized inside of AstraZeneca for the next 12 months? obviously you and Cindy had some conversations about
Oh yeah.
on these things. What's interesting for you in the next year?
Okay, so from a technology perspective, we got a 5-year strategy actually starting this year to 2025. And we're going to look specifically at 4 areas, and then I'll talk about my business priorities, because I always say the business is the what and the technology is the how. So from a technology perspective, we're going to look at 4 areas. Number 1 is enabling our AI, a focus on artificial intelligence. So we're going to look across all our major business processes. And in my area, you think about supply planning, you think about manufacturing, you think about sourcing, those and distribution. Those are my 4 major business processes in my area. I'll be looking at increasing the automation and the artificial intelligence within those 4 areas starting this year for the next 5 years. And my goal is to actually get 20% in this year with regards to AI enabled business processes in my area. So that's number 1. Number 2 is all around continuous delivery and data. And I want to talk about continuous delivery and data, because I came into this environment in AstraZeneca at the moment. We are basically functioning a bit like the old IT. We deal with projects. We have a start date, we have an end date. We don't have a concept about products and platforms. So I really want to start to drive the conversation about how do we simplify our application landscape and get into 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 major platforms. And then how do we actually equip the talent within our organization to really start to do product management and continuous delivery on the platform, so we can drive functionality out within an 8 to 12 weeks time period. So that's all around innovation. And then how do we actually make sure the data that we deploy under these platforms are accessible and the quality is high, because that will then enable me to get into my artificial intelligence goals for 20% of my business processes. Then the third area is to make this a great place to work. That means focus on my skill sets, my talent. Do I have the right type of focus on that? I need certain types of skill sets, like I need engineers for artificial intelligence. I need software developers. And I'm very lucky in AstraZeneca. This is the first company I've been in now for the last 20 years, where 85% of our engineering and development skill set is internal. So we have very little outsourced. So we have a lot of engineers and lots of it. But do we have the right level and right skill sets? So that's the third area that we want to focus on. Now, in terms of business priorities, I'm basically the business areas we're going to be focusing a lot on. This is how do we get our supply planning into synchronized planning. Currently, it's very manual. It's very depending on supply planners. We need to move it into AI and machine learning and get it synchronized and real-time managed. How do we get our factories smarter? We have 26 manufacturing plants around the globe. Out of that, 12 are tier 1 manufacturing plants. How do we actually get everything from how we actually plan in to manufacture on all our production lines smarter and get into using sensors and AI and artificial intelligence? And then, of course, we also have sourcing. How do we get into smart sourcing? So those are my 3 priorities for this year with regards to delivering for the business.
Wonderful. And I told you 30 minutes would go quick, and it did. We have time for one last question, 1 minute answer, very brief. But I always end the series with the nugget, the takeaway. And what is the one thing that you have done as a digital leader or as a CIO that's really helped you a lot? What's the one tool you can always reach in your kit and pull out that serves you very, very well as a leader, that you'd like to share with others that maybe they haven't used? So I know you've got a unique tool in your toolkit. In 1 minute, what would that be?
1 minute. You're saying one. I'm going to go very quickly. Focus on the business. Do not take your eye off the business, because that's what I truly believe. You're business leaders first, technology leaders second. And ensure you have a great team with a great talent, and practice empathetic leadership with your team, especially in these COVID times. Those are the sort of things that ground me and anchor me as I make decisions and I lead every day.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Gurinder, you've been fantastic. Really, really appreciate it on behalf of all of CIONET globally. Thank you so much. Quick reminder, every Wednesday, noon Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. We'll do this. Next week on deck is Tony Carrison, Group CTO for Bank of America. Another great conversation. But Gurinder, thank you so much. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For the last 15 years, I've been on a quest to discover the DNA of the most successful digital leaders in the world. What makes them tick, what's in their minds and in their hearts. We are sharing deep insights from our world-class CIOs so that you get inspired, can learn and reach your full potential as a digital leader. If you are an ambitious technology executive, then I invite you to join CIONET. Join our community so that you too can realize your ambition.